Hey guys! If you want to learn game development with Unity Game Engine, then you've come to the right place. You don't need to have any knowledge in Unity or coding. This is a beginner-friendly course. You will learn game development from scratch by making a full endless runner game that you can see now. I designed this course very straightforwardly. I think, when a new person learns game development, he actually wants to see the output of what he is learning. I mean, most people want to see the uses of what they are learning. This is why I designed the course based on the project. Before you start, you have to download the Unity Game Engine, and the Visual Studio 2019 or 2022. Doesn't matter what Visual Studio you use. By the way, the software Visual Studio has a problem. Sometimes, when you will open a script from Unity for the first time, that script will not open. You have to reopen that script from Unity in order to get the script opened in Visual Studio. However, as you have to make a game, so you have to download the game assets, link in the description. I didn't create those assets, by the way, I downloaded them from a website, but I can't remember the website name, as I have downloaded them almost 2 years ago. However, let's start learning game development. Hey guys, welcome to the first tutorial of this course. In this video, we will create the project and import assets. So, let's start by opening the Unity Hub. I am not going to show you how to download and install Unity, because you can download it easily. Still, if you face any problem while installing Unity, please search on Google about the problem. And you will find a bunch of videos on YouTube about how to download and install Unity. However, I am going to create a new 2D project. I am going to click 2D and name it Endless Runner Tutorial, and then change the location. After that, I am going to click Create. So, the project has been created. Now we can see the Unity interface. Probably this interface is very confusing for you. But no worries, I am going to make it easier for you. First we will change the layout, so we're gonna click on Layout and select 2x3. We will be using this layout to make this game. Because, I found this layout is more convenient. We will now understand about the most important windows. This window is called Hierarchy. All objects in the game are listed here on the Hierarchy window. Currently, we can see only one game object called Camera. If we select the camera, we can see the camera area on the scene view. This window is called Scene View, by the way. All game objects that are listed in the hierarchy will be visible in the scene view. Now, we will know about this window, which is called Game View. Basically, the camera view is the game view. Anything we put inside the camera area will be shown in the game view. This window shows the actual game scene. If you don't understand these now, don't worry, you don't have to. Now, I will make one thing a lot easier for you. Here you can see some navigation items. But, you actually don't need to understand any of them. Because, we can do all the navigation with our mouse and keyboard. That's what every game developers do. Before we learn about these, we've gotta be familiar with an important window called Project Window. Inside this window we will import our images or other things like audio or scripts. This project window is divided in 2 parts. In the left side, all the important folders of your game are listed. Now, if we select a folder, like if we select the Assets folder, we can see there is one item available in the Assets, which is a folder called Scenes. Now, if we select the Scenes folder from the left side, we can see there is a scene available in the Scenes folder. It means, the right side of the Assets folder shows the items available in the selected folder. However, here we have a scene called Sample Scene. But, we don't have to understand now what is scene. We will learn about it later. Now, we will select the Assets folder. We need to import some images, but before importing images we will create a folder inside of the assets folder. Because, we should keep the project organized. So, I am going to create a folder called sprites. To create a folder we will right click and select create and then folder. OK, now we will import some images inside of the sprites folder. Now, we will create a new folder called player inside of the sprites folder. Because, I want to import player images separately. So, let's import player images. OK, we've imported all images that we will be using in this game. Now, we will add the background in the scene view. So, I am going to drag and drop the background image onto the scene view or the hierarchy window. Now, if we click the background game object, we can see the properties of the background game object inside the inspector window. This game object has some components attached which give it the features that a game object should have. We can see those components in the inspector window. All the game objects have a default component called transform. We can access the game object's position, rotation, and scale. Now if we change the position, we could see it's getting applied in the scene view as well. To change the position, we will hover the mouse cursor on the X letter. Now, we will click and drag the cursor left or right side, we can see the position of the background game object is getting changed horizontally. X means horizontal and Y means vertical and Z means front or back. In the same way, we can change the rotation or scale of its X, Y, or Z axis. Don't be afraid to play with these options. If you mess up those things, just go ahead and reset the component. However, I am going to place the background game object in the middle of the camera which is 0, so if I just change the X position to 0, it will do what we want. So, this is it for this video and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Hey guys, this is the second tutorial of this course. Before we dive in, I am going to say, if you don't understand something, please don't be disappointed. Just watch the video for second or third time until you understand. In the previous video, we've added the background. We currently don't have the player. But, before creating the player we will create some grounds where the player will run. First, we will know how would you be able to navigate the scene view. If we want to move the scene around, we can click the mouse wheel button and then drag around. Or if we right click and drag the mouse, this will also work the same way. Now, we can see a camera icon in the middle of the scene view. But, I think this icon confuses us. So, I will make it invisible. To do that we will click on this drop down and then scroll down a little. Now, click on this camera icon which will make it invisible. However, I am going to create an empty game object. So, we have to right click and select create empty, then name it ground 1. We will need multiple images to create a single ground. Now, we will start creating the ground. We will actually put some ground images inside of the ground 1 game object. So, if we open the sprites folder, we can see there is 3 images that can be used to make the ground and we will use all of them to create the ground. So, let's start by drag and dropping the ground start image onto the ground 1 game object. We can't see this game object now. If you also cannot see the game object, just go ahead and reset the position. Now, we will drag and drop the ground mid game object onto the ground 1 game object. Now, Reset the transform component. OK, we can see the ground mid is now placed in front of ground start. I want to move the ground mid image next to the ground start image. So, I am going to select the ground mid game object. Here we will change the X position to 1.28. Now, we can see they are now attached to each other and there is no empty space between them. Now, I'm going to explain how did I know that we've to put the value 1.28. Actually, 1.28 is the length of ground start image. Let me show you what I wanted to mean. If I right-click on the ground start image and press Show in Explorer, and then if we hover over the cursor on the image, we can see the dimension which is 128 into 93. Here, 128 pixel is the width and 93 pixel is the height. So, it means 128 is the length. But, when we want to calculate the pixel value inside Unity, we have to calculate it in different format. Because, Unity doesn't calculate these values in pixel format. They have their custom format called unit. Now, if I press on the image then we can see an option called pixels per unit. The value is 100. It means, 1 unit is equal to 100 pixels. So, if we divide 128 pixels by 100 pixels, the result will be 1.28 unit. However, now I'm going to duplicate the ground mid game object by pressing Ctrl+D. This should be placed after those two pieces. So, I'm going to write 1.28 into 2 and then press enter. Now, we will make the ground even more longer by duplicating the ground mid game object 15 times. Now, we have to change the position of those duplicated game objects. So, I am going to select the ground mid 2 game object and then position it 1.28 into 3 and hit enter. Because this is going to be placed after 3 ground images. The next one would be 1.28 into 4. Do like this for the rest duplicated objects. Now we will add the ground end image. So, I am going to drag and drop the ground end onto the ground 1 game object. Then we will position it 1.28 into 17. Hope you understand. If you didn't, please watch it again. And please do the same thing along with me. This is very important. Please make the same game what I am making. However, we've completed the ground 1. But, we can see the position of the ground 1 is not 0. We should make it 0, otherwise it can make problems later. So, I am going to reset the position. So, after resetting the position, we can see it goes behind to the background image. In this case, we will need sorting layer. So, I am going to select ground start game object, so that the properties of this game object will be visible inside the inspector window. Now, here we can see an option called sorting layer. I am going to click on it and select add sorting layer. Here we will add a sorting layer by clicking the plus icon and name it background. Then we will create two more layers called midground and foreground. After that we will apply these layers for the game objects. I am going to select the background game object from the hierarchy and then select the background layer. Now, we will select all the game objects that are available under the ground 1 game object. So, I am going to select the first one, then hold the shift key and select the last game object. Now, all the game objects are selected, so that we can change the sorting layer for all of these. I am going to select the foreground layer. We can now see the ground game object goes in front of the background game object. Now, we will create ground 2. This ground would be a little smaller than the first ground. So, we will duplicate the ground 1. I am going to arrange them underneath the first ground, so that we can understand what's going on here. Then we will delete some ground mid-game objects from the ground 2. We will delete 7 ground mid-game objects from the end. Now, we will change the ground end game object's position. This should be 1.28 into 10. Then, we will now create the last ground, which is ground 3. So, I am going to duplicate the ground 2 and then we will delete 2 ground mid from it. Now, just like the previous one, we have to change the position of ground end game object. This time it will be 1.28 into 8, and then hit enter, so that Unity calculates it automatically. So we have created 3 grounds. Now, we will make them prefab. Prefab is something like building. If we create prefab for each ground, then we would be able to use that anywhere as much as we want. So, let's start off by creating a folder for prefabs. Now, we will drag and drop the ground 1 inside the prefabs folder. So, we've just created a prefab for ground 1 game object. This prefab can be used as much as we want. Now, it doesn't matter if we delete the ground 1 game object from the hierarchy window, because we've already saved it as a prefab. So, I am going to delete it. Now, we will create a prefab for the ground 2 game object. So, just like the previous one, I am going to drag and drop the ground 2 to the prefabs folder. Now, we will delete it from the hierarchy. Then we need one more prefab for the last ground. So, drag and drop it inside the prefabs folder. You might have noticed one thing, that once we create a prefab for a game object, it changes the color to blue, as you can see in the hierarchy window. I mean, if we see a game object with blue color, that is a prefab. However, I am going to delete this as well. So, now what we will do is get the ground 1 game object on the scene view. Because, we should keep a ground by default. The player will need it to run. We will position it like this. In the next video, we will create the player. So, I will see you in the next video. Hey guys! In this tutorial, we will create the player and also create all the animations that we are going to need in this game. As we are going to create animation for the player, so we will first create a folder called anim, because we should keep the project files organized. So I am going to open the player folder located in sprites folder. Here I am going to look for running images of the player. We will now select all the run images of the player. I am going to select the run 1 image and hold the shift key and then select the run 15 image, and then I am going to drag and drop them onto the hierarchy, or you can put it inside the scene view. We can see we got a floating window. It's because we have put multiple images at a time. It means we want to create an animation with those images, so we have to give a name for this animation. I am going to open the anim folder and then name it player run. I am going to change the name to player, because this is our player. And then we will change the sorting layer to midground. We can see the player looks too big compared to the background and ground. So, we will make it a little bit smaller. So, we will go to the player folder and select all the images of the player. Then inside the inspector window we can see there is an option called pixels per unit. The value is 100 by default. But, we will change it to 200. We already learned about the pixels per unit option in the previous video. After changing the value, we can hit apply. Now, inside the animation folder, we can see there is 2 files, but we created just one file, which was an animation clip. Be patient, let me show what's going on here. This player run file is an animation clip that we've just created. But, we didn't create this run 1 file, it has been created automatically when the player run animation clip was created. Because, this animation clip needs a controller in order to be used with a game object. Now, we will need a window called animation. So, I am going to select window and then animation and then select this animation. It will show the animation window to us, as you can see. I am going to drag this window and place it right here next to the game view window. Now, if we press this play button, we can see the player is running. But, I think the running speed is a little bit slow. So, we have to make it faster. To do that we will click this menu and select this show sample rate. It made the samples rate visible right here. The sample rate is currently 12. It means, 12 images are showing in 1 second. If we increase the sample rate, it will make animation faster. So, I am going to make it 20. Now, 20 images will be showing in each second. So, we are going to check if the animation became faster or not. Okay, we can see the animation is now faster than before, and I think this is enough. Now, we will need another animation clip for the player. This will be for jumping animation, so I am going to select the run drop down here and select create new clip. I am going to name it player jump and make sure it is inside the anim folder. Now, we have to add images for this animation clip. Because this time we didn't already add any image for the animation. So, I am going to open the player folder. and then select all the player jump images and then drag and drop them onto the animation window. The sample rate is 60, so the animation is too fast. We will make it a little slower. So, let's try with 15. It looks good for now. Now, we will add some components to the player. First, we will select the player game object and then inside the inspector we will click add component and then I am going to search for rigid body 2D. Now, I am going to click on it, so that it gets added automatically to the player game object. Rigid body makes a game object to fall down because of the gravity, just like any real-life object. By the way, we are going to need one more thing called polygon collider. This collider determines the object area. Because of this collider, this player will now be able to collide with another object. If you cannot understand it now, don't worry, wait a bit. Now, we will play the game for the first time to check if the player is falling down to the ground because of the gravity. Okay, it's working. But, it should fall down to the ground. But, it keeps falling down even through the ground. Because, the ground doesn't have any collider. So we will add collider to the three grounds. In this case, we will add box collider. Because, the box collider would be perfect for the ground. So, I am going to select the ground 1 game object and click on add component. Now, we can search for box collider 2D. Now, we can see a green box inside the scene view. This box is the collider area. Now, we have to edit this collider. So, I am going to click the Edit Collider option. Now, we can edit the collider shape the way we want from the scene view. When the editing is done, we can click again here to stop editing the collider. Now, remember this object is a prefab, so whenever we make a change to this object we have to apply it for the prefab that we have created earlier inside the prefabs folder. So, we will now click on Overrides drop-down and select Apply All. Now, we have to add the box collider 2D component for the rest 2 ground prefabs. So, I am going to open the prefab folder and double-click on the ground 2 prefab so that it opens the prefab's properties. Now, we can add the box collider 2D component. Then we will edit the collider shape. After that we will add the collider to the ground 3 prefab. Okay, now, we can check the game. So, the player is now falls down to the ground. But, we don't want it to fall like this. We want the player to fall down on the ground and stand up. So in this case, if we just freeze the player rotation from its z-axis, then it will not get rotated after falling down to the ground. In order to do that, I am going to select the player game object, and then inside the rigid body 2D component, we can see constraints, and then freeze rotation. We will just click this little box here. Then if we hit the play button, we can see the player falls down to the ground perfectly as expected. Now, make sure to save this by pressing Ctrl S. In the next video, we will make the player run endlessly. So, this is it for this video, and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial of this course. In this video, we will make the player run endlessly. We would have to write a few lines of code, which would be really easy for everyone even if someone has no coding knowledge. So, first of all, I am going to briefly tell you what is coding or programming. Coding or programming is commands. If you want to tell something to the computer, how do you tell? Like, hey computer, run the player forever, unless I command you to stop it. Yes, you have to tell the computer what you want to do. It's that simple. Although, the computer wouldn't understand the English directly. We have to follow some rules to make a command which is not hard. I will teach you as easily as possible. First, we will create a folder called scripts. Then we will create our very first script. This is C# script. C# is a programming language that Unity uses to make games. We would have to follow C# language rules while writing codes. So, the script name would be player controller. Now, I am going to double-click to open it in Visual Studio Community. After opening the Visual Studio, we can see some codes by default. Now, here you can see void start and void update. Both of them are function. If we write any codes inside the void start function, that will be executed as soon as the game starts. And if we write any codes inside the update function, that will be executed once per frame. It means, if the game runs 60 frames per second, then all the codes written inside this function will be executed 60 times in every second. Now, we will create a rigid body type variable called RB2D. Now, I am going to tell what is variable. Variable is a thing that can store something. Like, this is a rigid body 2D type variable, so it can store a rigid body 2D component. We will need to access the rigid body 2D component from the player game object. We've already added a rigid body 2D component to the player in the previous video, so now we can access it from the player using this variable. We want to get the rigid body when the game starts, so we will write codes inside the start function. First, we will write the variable name, which is RB2D. Then after an equal sign, we will write get component rigid body 2D. Don't forget to type the semicolon to complete the line. There you can see two arrow sign and brackets. They are a part of rules as we are coding in C# programming language. You don't have to memorize those things, by the way. However, just by this line of code, We have got the rigid body 2D component. Now we would be able to use this component to run the player. We will do this inside the update function, as the update function will be running forever. However, we will make the player run by updating the player position at the front side. We will first write transform.position. This means the player position, because we will attach the script to the player within a minute. However, we will now change the transform.position's value. Here we will first write the running direction. In this case, we want the player to run at the right side. So, we will write vector3.right and then we will multiply this with the running speed of the player. Running speed can be variable. So, we will create an int type variable called runSpeed. Int variable means we can store only integer numbers inside the variable. Now, we will make this variable public. Public variable means we would be able to access this variable from another script, and this variable will be visible inside the inspector so that we can change the value from the inspector without changing any code. However, after multiplying the run speed, we will multiply with time.delta time. Time.delta time means the interval between two frames. For example, if the game runs 60 frames per second, then the time.delta time value will be 0.02. We have multiplied with time.delta time because, multiplying with time.delta time will keep the running animation smooth according to the device performance. Now, since we want to make the player run, so we will add the current position of the player. Otherwise the player will not move. So, we will type plus transform.position. This will keep the player stay in its new position. Finally, we will save the script. Now, I am going back to the Unity editor. Now we will select the player. Then we will click on Add Component and then search for the script name which is Player Controller and add it. So, we have just attached the script to our player. Now, as I said earlier that I would be able to set the run speed value from the inspector, here you can see that. I am going to set the value for. Now, we will change the player position right in place. We will now play the game and see if the player runs. So, it's working perfectly and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial. In the previous video, we have learned how to run a game object. In this video we are going to learn how to make a player jump. And then we will also learn how to limit the player after jumping 2 times consecutively, and then the player will need to fall down to the ground in order to jump again. So, let's start off by opening the player controller script in Visual Studio. First, we will create an int variable called jump count, which will be equal to 0. This variable is needed to count the jump. Now, we will need another bool variable called canJump. Bool variable means the variable can store only true or false. Such as, if the player can jump then we will make the variable true, and if the player gets limited after jumping 2 times, then we will make the canJump variable to false unless it touches the ground. However, we have made both variables private, because we will not need to use these variables in another script. If you don't understand, don't be disappointed, just keep watching the video and please do what I will do. Now, we want the player to jump only when the user will press the space key on the keyboard. So, we first have to detect the space key press and then we will make the player jump. We will do this inside the update function. Here we will put a condition, that would be like if the player presses the space key, then the player will jump. So, I am going to write if, then inside the parentheses, we are going to write input.getKeyDown and space inside parentheses and double quotes. We use double quote if we need to write raw texts which are not code. Now, we will write codes for jump inside the curly brackets and this code will only be executed whenever the if condition will be true. So, I am going to write rb2d.velocity. This time we are using the rigid body type variable called rb2d that we have created earlier. We use velocity from the rigid body component when we want to change the object's position using rigid body. Now, we will provide the moving direction. Since we want the player to jump, so we will type vector3.up. After that we will multiply the player with a speed, because the player will need a speed to make a jump. So, I am going to use 7.5f as the move speed value. After 7.5, we need to type af, because, the number contains decimal. You can put this value inside variable, but I am not using any variable. Because, I already know, 7.5 would be the perfect value. And typing a value directly is way easier than creating a new variable. Now, I am going to save the script by pressing Ctrl S. Go back to the Unity editor and then we will play the game. So, it's working as expected. Now, we will add the jump animation to the player that we have created earlier. To do that, we're going to need animator window. So I am going to get from window, animation, and then select animator. This animator window should be placed automatically next to the scene view window. Now, I am going to select the player game object, so the animation controller of the player game object will open inside of the animator window as you can see. We can see some boxes inside the window. I am going to move them, and keep some spaces among each other. Here you can see entry box, which has an arrow indicator with the player run box. Player run means the running animation of the player. So, the whole thing means, when the game will start, the run animation will play automatically, and this is happening right now. Now, we want the player to jump directly without stopping the run. So, we will make a link between the player run and player jump box. This player jump box means jump animation by the way. Now, in order to make a link, I am going to right click on the run box and select make transition and then click the jump box. Now, since we want the player to go back to its run animation when the jump ends, so we will now make another opposite arrow link. So, we will right click on the jump box and then select make transition and then click on the run box. Now, I am going to double click on the jump box. Inside the inspector, we will uncheck the loop time. By default, loop is enabled for all animations. But, we don't want the jump animation to loop forever. Now, we will configure when the jump animation will be played. Still, the jump animation doesn't have any connection with our script. So, we will first create a parameter. I am going to click on parameters. Now, I am going to click this plus icon and then select trigger. We will name it jump. We don't need any parameter for run animation, because run is the default animation that will be looping forever without any condition. Now, before getting back to code, we need to do one more thing. We will click the first arrow transition. Inside this inspector, we can see a conditions part. We will click on the plus sign, so a new condition will be created. We can see here jump. Because, we currently have only one parameter called jump. we only need the condition to play the jump animation. So we will not need any condition for the other transition. Because once the jump animation finishes, it will automatically get back to the run animation. Now, we can see another option called as exit time. We will uncheck this, because we want the player will not take any time to play the jump animation. Now, I am going back to Visual Studio and then we will use the parameter in order to show the jump animation. So, we will first need the animator component of the player. If we open Unity and select the player game object, then we can see in the inspector there is a component called animator. The player got this component automatically, because we created the player game object by creating a player run animation. However, we will access this component in the start function. Before getting the component, I am going to create an animator type variable called anim. Now, we will save the animator component of the player inside this variable. So, I am going to write anim equals to get component and then animator. Now we can use the anim variable to play the jump animation. So, I will write codes to play the jump animation inside of the if condition. We will write anim set rigor and then the parameter name which is jump. Make sure the parameter name is accurate. Now, I am going to save the script by pressing Ctrl S and then go back to Unity. Now, play the game to see if it's working. Okay, it's working, but if we press the space key multiple times, the player is jumping again and again. Now, we will limit the player to jump only 2 times even if the user presses the space key more than 2 times. Then it will need to fall down to the ground in order to be able to jump again. So, we will first count the jump inside the if condition, because this is where we typed codes to make the player jump. So, we will count jumps right here. So, I am going to type jump count equals to 1 plus and then we will add the current jump amount which is jump count. Now, we can write this line even more easily. I am going to remove plus jump count from the end. And then we will add a plus sign before the equal sign. It also means jump count equals jump count plus 1. Now, at the top of the jump code, I am going to add one more condition. That will be if the jump count becomes 2, I mean if the player jumps 2 times consecutively, then the canJump variable will be false. So, the player will not be able to jump for the 3rd time. So we are going to write if jump count equals 2. Then the task we want to happen is, canJump is equal to false. In C# programming language we have to write equal sign 2 times if we want to mean equal. I just noticed, we forgot one thing, we have created canJump variable, but we didn't use it as a condition. So, I am going to add this condition next to where we get the space button input. So, I am going to type and sign 2 times, as we are adding another condition to the input condition. Now, we will type canJump. This canJump means if the canJump variable becomes true. So, the whole condition stands for if the space key gets down and canJump is true, then the player will jump. And the other condition means if the player jumps 2 times, then the canJump variable will be false, so the player will not be able to jump again. Now, we will do another thing, if the player touches the ground the jump count will be 0. So, how would we do that? First, we have to detect the collision between player and ground. Before doing this, I am going back to Unity. Now, we will click on the player and then inside the inspector, we can see tag and currently, the game object is untagged. So we will click here and then select player. Now, what is tag in Unity? Tag is something that we use to detect a game object. Such as, now the player is tagged as player. So, we will easily be able to detect any collision with the player by using the player tag. Now, what we need to do is, we need to set a tag for our grounds. We currently have 3 grounds as prefab. We will create one tag for all the grounds. So I am going to open the prefabs folder, and then we will double click the ground one to open its properties. Now, in tag option we will select add tag. Here we will add a tag by pressing on the plus sign and name it ground. We didn't have to create the player tag because, it was created by default when the project was created. Now, I am going to set this tag for the ground 1 prefab and then we will set the same tag for the other 2 grounds. So, we can now open the Visual Studio. Here we will add a function called onCollision enter 2D. Inside this function we will detect the collision between 2 objects. In this case, player and ground. So, we will write, if collision.gameObject.compare tag and then ground inside double quote. Then what will happen is, the jump count variable will be equal to 0 and the canJump variable will be true. This condition means if the player ever collides with a game object, then this onCollision enter 2D gets called and it will check if the player collided with a game object that is under the ground tag. We didn't write the player tag anywhere. Because, the script is attached with the player. So, all the codes are executing in favor of the player. I mean, this script means the player game object. However, now we will check if the code is working perfectly. I am going to hit play. Okay, everything is working pretty good. So, this is it for this video. Hey guys. In this tutorial, we will learn how to make the camera follow player. So, first we will create a new script called follow player inside the scripts folder. This script should be attached with that game object which will follow the player. In this case, we want the camera to follow the player. So, we will attach the script to the camera. I am going to drag and drop the script to the main camera game object. Now, if we click the main camera game object, then we can see in the inspector the script has been attached. And then we will open it in Visual Studio. First, we will create a game object type variable called player. We need this player game object, because this game object is the target which the camera will follow. Now, we will need a vector3 type variable called offset. Vector3 means 3 direction like x, y, and z. We use vector3 to measure a distance in 3 dimensions. Now, we need set value for those 2 variables. I am going to do this in the start function. First, we will find the player game object by its tag. Remember, we have set a tag for the player in the last video. So, I am going to write player equals to GameObject.find GameObject with tag, and then we will write the tag name, which is player. Now, we will set a value for the offset variable. So, I am going to write offset equals to, here we will need the distance between camera and the player. So, first I am going to type transform.position. Transform.position means the current position of the camera game object. We don't need to write the camera name because the script is currently attached with the camera. However, now we will subtract the player position. So, I am going to write -player.transform.position. So, now we have the distance between the camera and the player game object. Now, since we want the camera will move along with the player, so we will use the update function. We will actually set the player position as the camera position and then add the offset. So, I am going to write transform.position equals to new vector 3, and then, we will put 3 value which are x, y, and z. Here, transform.position means the camera position, and we are using vector 3 to set the new camera position, because we can write x, y, and z values separately. So, we will first set the x value, which will be player.transform.position.x. We've just got the player x value, so the camera will move along with the player horizontally. Now, since the camera and the player is not placed at the same position, so, we will keep the offset distance from the player by adding the offset variable with it. We only need the x value from the offset. Now, we will set the y and z value. We don't want the camera to follow the player vertically, I mean the y dimension. So, we will set the current y position of the camera. Transform.position.y means the current y value of the camera. And then we will also keep the current z position of the player. Now, I am going to save the script by pressing Ctrl S, and then we will go back to Unity. Play the game. It's working fine. So, this is it for this video, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Hey guys. We currently have only one ground. When the player completes running over the ground 1, then it starts falling down. So, now we need more grounds. So in this video, we will make spawn random grounds. We will create a game object to spawn ground in order to determine the right spawning position. So, I am going to create the game object called ground spawner. Now, we will add a box collider 2D. Now, I am going to edit the collider shape and make it so long. Now, place it at the end of the ground, make sure it is over the ground. This game object will always move along with the player, and it will also keep detecting the ground if any ground is there. Now, if the ground spawner game objects ever found there is no ground in front, then it will immediately spawn a new ground. Since the ground will keep detecting the ground, this is why we have added a box collider. Because, the box collider will keep colliding with the ground, when the collision will end then we will understand there is no more grounds, so this is the time to create a new ground. However, there is a problem, since the game object has a collider, so the game object will not be able to go through the ground, because the ground also has a collider. So, in order to make the game object be able to go through the ground, we have to enable an option called isTrigger. This option will make the ground spawner game object capable to go through the ground. But, if we want to detect the collision with the ground, then we also need the rigid body component for the ground spawner game object. Because, at least one object must have a rigid body component in order to collide. However, now we will create a new script called ground spawner. I am going to attach the script to the ground spawner game object. Now, we will also attach the follow player game object to the ground spawner, so the object will move along with the player. Now, we will open the ground spawner script in Visual Studio. Since the ground spawner game object will spawn grounds, so we will first have to get all the grounds. We have to create 3 variables to store those grounds. So I am going to create game object type variable called ground1. Now, either we can create a different variable like this one, or we can add a comma and then write ground2. This also means we have 2 different variables. Now, we need another one for the ground3. We will now create a bool variable called hasGround. We will make the default value true, because the ground spawner object is currently placed over the ground1 game object. However, this variable will be true when the ground spawner will keep colliding with the ground. Once the collision ends, it will be false. So we will understand when to spawn a new ground. However, first we will need to detect the collision between ground spawner and the ground. So, we will need the function called onCollisionEnter2D. But this time we will use another function called onTriggerEnter2D, because currently we have the isTrigger option enabled for the box collider component. So, we will detect the trigger inside this function. As the isTrigger is enabled, so the collision will be trigger instead. However, we will now check the trigger with ground object by the tag. Here the collision.gameObject means that game object which the ground spawner has collided, and then we have checked if the object is under the ground tag. Now, when the collision starts, we want the hasGround to become true. After that we are going to need another function called onTriggerExit2D. We can know if the collision has ended by this function. So, just like the onCollisionEnter2D, we will first check the collided game object whether it's a ground, and then we will make the hasGround variable false. So, now we will make a function called spawnGround. Then we will be able to spawn a ground just by calling this function. So, I am going to write public void spawnGround. In this case, since we want a random ground will be spawned, so we will generate random number here. So, I am going to first create a variable called random number. We will put the generated random number to this variable. I am going to write random.range, and then we will write the range for random number. The range will be 1 to 4. This will generate a random number within 1, 2, or 3. So, we will now do some if condition. The first condition would be if the random number becomes 1, then the first ground will be spawned. So, how we can spawn a ground? We need to write instantiate. And then we will pass some parameters inside the parentheses. First parameter would be the name of the game object that we want to spawn. So, I am going to type the first ground name, which is ground1. And then we will pass the position where the game object will spawn. I am going to type new vector 3 and then we will pass the x, y, and z value. I am going to open Unity to teach you in a better way. Now, I will temporarily place another ground next to the ground 1. Now, you can see there is no space between two ground, which doesn't look interesting. So, if we put some space here, then it looks pretty interesting. Now, since the spawn ground script is attached to the ground spawner game object, so we will use the x position of this object, and then we will add 3 unit space with the ground spawner position. In this way we will get the right place to spawn the ground. So, I am going to type transform.position.x plus 3. Now, we will pass the y value. For the y value we will type the bottom position where the ground 1 is currently placed. So, I am going to copy the value and paste it here. Now, since the number contains decimal, so we must have to add f after the value. Otherwise, it will show error. After that we will pass the z value, which should be 0. Now we will pass the rotation. In this case, I want the rotation of the game object would be same as the prefab's rotation. So, we will type quaternion.identity. Then I am going to copy the first if condition and then paste it underneath. Now, we will make this too. This time we want the second ground, so I am going to make it ground 2. And then we will change the y value only. If I open Unity and move the ground a little up, that will be more interesting. So, we want the second ground will spawn right here. This ground will only be spawned if the random number becomes 2. Now, we will copy this if condition one more time, and paste it for the ground 3. So, we will now change the number here, and then the ground name. Now, the y value of the position would be changed here. First, I am going to see where should I place it. I think this position is good. However, I am going to copy this, and then paste it in Visual Studio. You can of course tweak those values. Now, we have to call the function from somewhere in order to spawn a ground. So, I will do it inside the update function. So, I am going to write another if condition. This would be if the hasGround variable is false, then spawn a new ground. Here you can see we used an exclamation mark. This is a sign of writing false. If we don't use the exclamation mark, then it will mean true that we already know. However, when the hasGround will be false, then we want a ground to be spawned. So, I am going to just call the spawnGround function like this. This should spawn a ground. Now, after spawning the ground we want the hasGround variable will be true again. Otherwise the update function will keep spawning ground. Okay, so I am going to save the script by pressing Ctrl S and then we will go back to the Unity editor. Now we can delete the ground2 game object, because I don't need this anymore. Then, we will select the ground spawner game object. In the inspector, we can see there is some options called ground 1, ground 2, and ground 3. These are the variables we've created in the script. Now, we will attach our all grounds to this variables. So, I am going to open the prefabs folder, and then drag and drop the ground 1 game object to the ground 1 slot. In the same way, we will attach the other 2 grounds to their slot. Then we will do another thing. We can see the rigid body has an option called constraints. Here we will freeze the Y position. Because, if the Y is not freeze, then it will keep falling down because of the gravity, and we definitely don't want that. Now, we will also freeze the rotation Z. Because, this game object shouldn't be rotated. Now, I am going to play the game. We can see everything is working fine, so I will see you in the next video. Hey guys! In this video, we will create repeating background. In the previous video, we have set up spawn random grounds. Now, grounds are randomly spawning. But there is currently only one background. We will make this background repeat forever. So, now I am going to duplicate the background game object by pressing Ctrl D. The duplicated game object called BG1 is currently placed on top of the main background game object. Now, I am going to move it at the right side. We will place it next to the old background image, so that we get 2 backgrounds alongside. So, I am going to write 24 to the X position. Because, I already know the image width is 2400 pixels, which means 24 units. So, now we can see there is no space between them. Now, inside the hierarchy, I am going to drag the duplicated object and then drop it on the old background game object. Now, the BG1 is a child of the BG game object. So now if we move the main background game object, then the child object BG1 will also move along with the main background game object. So, now I am going to tell you how we will make the repeating background. I will also keep another option while making the repeating background, which is parallax effect. It means, when the player runs, the player overpasses the background and the ground, so we can see the background and ground are going back, as the player is running. But, it doesn't give the realistic feel, as the background is a remote object. The background should move back a bit slowly compared to the ground and the player. And this matter is called parallax effect. Now, we will know how we can make repeating background. Currently, the camera is moving along with the player. When the camera will move and reach to the end of the background game object, immediately the background game object will move 24 units forward. Because, 24 units or 2400 pixel is the width of the background image. So, the whole background including its child will give us a full repeating background feel. If you don't understand what I am trying to mean, don't worry, you will understand everything very clearly once we've done it. So, I am going to go ahead and create a C# script called repeating background. I am going to open it in Visual Studio. Now, we will create a game object type variable called camera, as the background will repeat based on the camera movement, so we must need the camera. Now, we will create a flow type variable called parallax effect. Flow type variables can store number that contains decimal. Now, we will create 2 more flow type variables called width and position x. the width will have the width size of the background image. And the position x will have the current position of the background game object. So, now I am going to set value for the width variable inside of the start function. So I am going to write getComponent and then sprite renderer.bounds.size.x. This will give the x size or the horizontal size of the background image to the width variable. Now, we will set the position x value, which is going to be transform.position.x. Now, inside the update function, we will make a float variable called parallax distance. Before setting value for this variable, I am going to tell how we will make the parallax effect. First, what if we don't have the parallax effect? Without parallax effect, the player will be surpassing the ground and the background at the same time. But, we want to make a feel like the background is a remote object, so the player will surpass the background slowly. So, with the parallax effect, the background should move a little bit slowly along with the player, so it will make us feel like the background is far away, so the player is surpassing it slowly. However, I am going to write camera's x position. Then we will multiply with the parallax effect variable. Now, we will make another variable called remaining distance. Here we will multiply the camera's x position with 1 minus parallax effect. Here, the parallax distance means how far the background should move because of the parallax effect. And the remaining distance means how far the camera will have to go in order to go beyond the background image. However, I am going to attach the repeating background script to the background game object. Now, I will go back to the Visual Studio. We will now make the background image move because of the parallax effect. So, transform.position is equal to new vector 3. For the x value, we will write the position x variable and then we will add the parallax distance variable. So, the background will move for the parallax effect. Now, for the y and z position, I am going to pass its current position. The last thing we have to do is the most important thing, which is, we will make the background repeat. So, I am going to write an if condition. The condition is going to be if the remaining distance is greater than position x plus width. Then the position x variable will be added to the width variable. So as a result, this will move the background to a distance equal to its width. Now, I am going to save the script by pressing Ctrl S, and then go back to the Unity. Now, we will attach the camera to the repeating background script. Then we will set the parallax effect value. This value will be between 0 to 1. If we set the value 0, that will not make any parallax effect. And if we put the value 1, that will make the background move along with the player with same speed. So, we will put a value like 0.3 or 0.4. I am going to set 0.4. Now, we will play the game to see if it's working. Okay, everything is fine. Now, if you don't understand this video, please watch it again. If you understand it lately, that would be more effective. Or alternatively, I'd recommend another video that I found on YouTube. That video is by Danny, an awesome game developer. If you search on YouTube by Danny repeating background, you will get the video. Hopefully, you will like his teaching style. However, this is it for this video, and we will add some obstacles to the game in the next video. Hey guys! In the last video we have created repeating background. But currently the game doesn't have any obstacles, so the game is not interesting. If we have a look at the sprites folder, we can see there is some images like cactus and crate. We will make obstacles from those images. And then we will place those obstacles in front of the player, so the game will be a little more interesting. So, we will create the first obstacle from the cactus 1 image. First, we will drag and drop the image onto the hierarchy. We have to change the sorting layer to foreground. Now, we will add a box collider 2D. Unity has different type of colliders for different type of objects. If the object shape is like a box or rectangular, then we should use box collider 2D component. Or if the object is circular, then we should use circle collider 2D, or if you see the object is not like a box or a circle, then you can use polygon collider. But, we shouldn't use polygon collider too much. Because, polygon collider is a very heavy component, which can make the game very laggy. In this game, I have used the polygon collider just for the player. Because, the player will not spawn again and again like grounds, so it shouldn't create much problem. My suggestion is you should always avoid using polygon collider. Now, for the cactus, I have used box collider, because we will make this game object to spawn again and again. So, I will adjust the box collider shape for this object. Okay, this doesn't look so perfect. But, it's enough for this game. Now, we will add a rigid body component. Now, I am going to open the prefabs folder. Here we will drag and drop the cactus 1 game object from the hierarchy to make a prefab for this game object. Now, we can delete the game object from the hierarchy. Now, we will create another prefab for the cactus 2, so drag and drop the image onto the hierarchy. Change the sorting layer to foreground as before. Then we will add a circle collider 2D component, because, the object looks kind of circular I think. Now, I am going to adjust the collider shape. Okay, not so perfect, but good enough for this game. The next thing we are going to need is the rigid body component. Make sure you are adding the rigid body 2D component, because the only rigid body component is for 3D game objects. After that we can make it a prefab. And then delete it from the hierarchy. Now, we will make the last obstacle using the crate. So, I am going to drag and drop it onto the hierarchy, and then change the sorting layer. Now add a box collider 2D component. Because, the crate looks like a box. We need a little bit of adjustment of the collider shape for this box. I suggest, Always keep the collider shape a little smaller than the actual object, as you can see. Now, I can make it prefab by dragging it onto the prefabs folder. And then we can delete it from the hierarchy. Now, all the prefabs are untagged. If I double click on the Cactus 1 prefab, we can see the object is untagged. So, I am going to click here and select Add Tag. We will add a tag called Obstacle. Now we can set the obstacle tag for the Cactus 1 prefab. Now, we will set this tag for the other two obstacles. We have set this tag for all the obstacles, so that we can easily detect all the game objects just by calling the obstacle tag inside the script. So, we now have 3 obstacles for this game. In the next video, we will make spawn those obstacles in front of the player. The player will have to jump over those obstacles without colliding with them. If the player collides with an obstacle, the game will be over. So, this is it for this video, and I will see you in the next video. Hi guys. Welcome to another tutorial of this course. In the previous video, we have created 3 obstacles. But, we have not used them yet. So, how do we use them? We want those obstacles to spawn in front of the player randomly. So, we need to create a script first. I am going to create one called Obstacle Spawner. Now, we can open the script. First of all, we need the access of the 3 obstacles inside this script. So, we will create 3 game object type variables. It is public because we have to access it from inspector window. First one is obstacle 1, no space here, variable name cannot have space. The second and third variable is going to be obstacle 2 and obstacle 3. Now, we are going to need a private float type variable called obstacle spawn interval, since we want there will be an interval between spawning 2 obstacles. Like when the first obstacle will spawn, it will wait for 2 to 3 seconds, and then spawn another obstacle. So, I am going to give a value like 2.5f for this variable. Now, we will create a function called spawnObstacle. Inside this function, we will write code for spawning obstacles. We want those obstacles will be spawning randomly. So we need to generate random number. I am going to create an integer type variable called random. Now inside this variable, we will put the generated random number. So, I am going to generate random number right here. The range is going to be 1 and 4. So, it will now generate a random number between 1, 2, or 3. Now, we will do some if condition. The first condition is going to be if the random number is equal to 1, then we will spawn the obstacle 1. So, in order to spawn an obstacle we need to write instantiate. Now we have to pass some parameters. The first parameter will be the game object that we want to spawn. Here we want to spawn obstacle 1 game object. The next parameter is going to be the position where we want the obstacle 1 to be spawned. Now, I am going to open the Unity editor to show you where we actually want to spawn the obstacle. Inside the hierarchy, we can see a game object called ground spawner. We have created this game object earlier for spawning grounds. And we will use the X position of this game object for spawning obstacles. Because, if we spawn an obstacle at this position, then obstacle will be automatically placed on the ground. So, how we can get the X position of this game object inside the script? Okay, Currently we know the obstacle spawner script is not attached to any game object. The script will not work if it is not attached to a game object. So, if I attach the script to the ground spawner game object, then we can easily get the X position of this game object. So, I am going to attach the script. Now, there is a problem. What would be the Y position for spawning obstacle, since all grounds don't spawn at the same Y position? What if the next ground spawns at the top position, then the obstacle will keep falling down as it will not find any ground underneath. So, in order to prevent that, I am going to see where the toppest ground spawns. Now, I will play the game. I am going to wait until the ground 3 spawns. Okay, we can see the ground 3 spawned at this Y position, which is -1.04. It means I have to use a value longer than -1.04. Now, I think the perfect value should be like -0.5. So, the obstacle will be spawned above the toppest ground, and then it will fall down to the ground. So, I am going to go back to the Visual Studio. And then as we will pass x, y, and z values separately, so we have to write new vector 3, then we will write the x position. As currently the script is attached to the ground spawner game object, so if we write transform.position.x, then we get the x position of the ground spawner game object. Now, we will write the y position, which would be -0.5f. And then we can write 0 for the z position. Now, we have to pass one more parameter, which is rotation. Here we can write quaternion.identity. It will not make any change for the rotation. If the game object is already rotated, then that rotation will be applied, otherwise nothing will happen. So now, we will write another if condition for the obstacle too. Here we can just write else. And then we can copy the first if condition and paste it here. Now, I am going to change those value. If the random number is 2, then the obstacle 2 will be spawned. Now, we can copy this condition for the obstacle 3. And then change those values from 2 to 3. Now, we need to call the spawn obstacle function, as we already know that a function must be called from an event if we want the function to work. But, since we want to call this function repeatedly after every 2.5 seconds, so we are going to need a timer, and we will create another function where we will call the spawn obstacle function with a timer. In this case, Unity has a special function called iEnumerator. I am going to create one and name the function spawn obstacles. Make sure the function name is not similar to an existing function. Now, since we want to call the function again and again, so we need a loop. Loop means something that repeats forever. There are multiple types of loop. But, we need while loop here. So, I am going to type while, and then we can give a condition. But, as we want the function to be looping forever unconditionally, so we don't need any condition. But we cannot leave it empty. So, we can write true, as true doesn't mean negative. Now, we will call the spawn obstacle function. After that, we will set up a timer here. So, I am going to type yield return new and then wait for seconds. Now, here we will pass the obstacle spawn interval variable. This line will keep the function wait for 2.5 seconds. So, now this loop will first call the spawn obstacles function, then after every 2.5 seconds it will get called again and again. Now, inside of the start function, we have to call the IEnumerator function. We have to call the IEnumerator function in a different way. First, we will type start coroutine. And then inside a double quotes, we will write the function name which is spawn obstacles, or we can copy and paste the function name inside the double quotes. Now, we can save the script by pressing Ctrl S, and then open Unity Editor. Now, we will attach the 3 obstacles to the script. So, I am going to open the prefabs folder and then we will drag and drop one by one. Now, I am going to play the game. We can see the crate is not falling down. Maybe we forgot to add rigid body component to the crate game object. No problem, we can add rigid body at any time. So, I am going to stop the game. Then double click on the crate prefab. Yes, we cannot see the rigid body. As I said, I forgot to add the rigid body 2D component. However, now we will add the rigid body 2D component. After adding the rigid body, I am going to play the game again. Now, we can see the crate is falling down perfectly. But, we can also see the obstacles are falling down really slowly, so we can see the falling scene in the game view window. We want the obstacle will be fallen down before the camera come. So, we have to increase the obstacle falling speed. So, inside the prefabs folder, we will double click to open the Cactus 1 prefab. We can see the rigid body component which makes the object fall down. Here we can see gravity scale value is 1. If we make the gravity scale 0, then the object will not fall down at all. But, if we increase the gravity scale to 5, it will increase the fall down speed by 5x. So, the obstacle will fall down really quickly. Now, we will increase the gravity to 5 for the obstacle 2 prefab. Then we will do the same for the crate prefab. Now, we will do one more thing, we will move the ground a little at the right side. Then as we've moved the ground, so we will move the ground spawner game object at the right side as well. Now, we also need to move the player. Okay, this looks perfect. So, now, we will play the game again to see if it's working correctly. Okay, it's working as expected. The obstacles fall down so quickly that we cannot see the falling inside the game view window. So this is it for this video and I will see you in the next tutorial. Hey guys! Welcome to another tutorial. In the previous video, we have created spawn random obstacles. Now, obstacles are spawning. Now, we will do a thing which is we will destroy unnecessary grounds and obstacles. So, which are unnecessary? I am going to play the game to explain you that. Here we can see the player goes forward over the ground, and also passes over some obstacles. So, the past grounds and obstacles become unnecessary. In this case, if someone plays the game for 1 minute or 2 minutes, that wouldn't make any problem. But, if someone plays the game for a long time, then there will be so many unnecessary obstacles and grounds which can make the game lagging. So, we will do something like when a ground or an obstacle goes out of the camera area, that object will be destroyed automatically. First, we will create an empty game object and name it Destroyer. Then we will add a box collider to this game object. I am going to edit the collider shape and make it longer vertically, since this will detect grounds and obstacles. Then we will place it away from the camera area. The distance from the camera should be more than the longest ground, which is ground 1, otherwise the object destroying scene would be visible inside the game view. So, in order to prevent that, we should place the destroyer far away from the camera. Now, we are going to need a duplicate of this destroyer for the bottom side. We will rename it to Bottom Destroyer. The bottom destroyer is needed, because sometimes obstacles can fall down because of the space between two grounds, so we should destroy those obstacles. This is why we created the bottom destroyer, which will destroy those fallen obstacles. I am now going to edit the collider shape, and this should be much wide. The right side should be longer than the ground spawner game object. The left side should be extended up to the destroyer game object. Because, all the ground will have some obstacles, so if the ground gets destroyed by colliding with the destroyer game object, then the obstacles which were on top of the ground will fall down before reaching out to the destroyer game object. So now those obstacles will be caught by the bottom destroyer. Now, these destroyers definitely should move along with the player. So, we will attach the follow player script to both destroyer. Now, we have to create another script. We can call it Obstacle Destroyer. We will write codes in this script for destroying ground and obstacles. So, open it in Visual Studio. In this script, we will not even use the start or update function. We will use another function which is on collision enter 2D. And then we will make an if condition, like if the collided game object's tag is obstacle. Then that object will be destroyed. So, we have to write, if collision.gameObject.compare tag is obstacle. Then we will do destroy collision.gameObject. Now, we will copy and paste this condition for the grounds, as we want the grounds will also be destroyed. Here we will change the tag name to ground, and this is it. Save the script by pressing Ctrl S and then open the Unity editor. Now, we have to attach the obstacle destroyer script to both of this destroyer. By the way, I just saw the ground doesn't have a rigid body component, so we must need the rigid body component for the destroyer game object. Otherwise we will not be able to detect the collision with ground. As we already know, in order to detect a collision between two game objects, at least one object must have a rigid body component. So, I am going to add the rigid body 2D component to the destroyer game object. Then we will make the gravity scale to 0. The bottom destroyer does not need rigid body because it will not collide with ground, it will only collide with obstacle. Now, we can play the game. Okay, grounds and obstacles are now destroying. But, there is a problem. This player game object contains a polygon collider which has a shape of the player. So, when it runs, sometimes the player can't reach to the next ground. So, the player should fall down if it can't reach, but sometimes we can see the player head get stuck to the ground, so it can't fall down, and this looks really unrealistic. So, we will not use polygon collider. We will use box collider instead. So, I am going to remove the polygon collider and then add the box collider to it. Now, we will edit the collider shape. Okay, this shape doesn't have any head or leg, so it will not get stuck like that anymore. Either it will fall down or start running over the next ground. Now, I am going to play the game again. Okay, it's fine, and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys! Welcome to another tutorial video. In this tutorial, we will add the game over function to this game. We will also add the game over animation of the player. Like when the game will be over, the player will die. So, we have to add the death animation. I am going to select the player game object and then open the animation window. Now, we will create a new clip from here. Make sure it is inside the anim folder. We can name it player death. Now, we will open the player sprites folder. Then we will select all the dead images and drag and drop them onto the animation window. Now, we have to change the sample to 24. The animation will be like this. After creating the death animation clip, we need the animator window as we need to set up the animation. So, we will create a trigger type parameter called death. Previously we have created a parameter for the player jump animation which was also trigger type parameter. However, now we will make a transition between run and death. Now, we will double-click the death animation box and disable the loop time, as we don't need this animation to loop. Because, death shouldn't loop. So, now we will get to the code. First, we have to open the player controller script. We will create the game over system inside this script. So, we will first create a public bool variable called isGameOver. By default, it should be false. Now, we will make a function called GameOver. Inside this function, first we will make the isGameOver true. Then we will call the death animation of the player, because the death animation should be played when the game is over. So, I am going to write anim.setRiger and the parameter name which is death. Now, we will use the isGameOver variable to control the full game. First, we will give a condition to the player run code. The condition will be if the isGameOver is false. Here you can see a exclamation mark, because exclamation mark means false. So, if the variable is false, then the player will run. Otherwise, the player will not run. This condition is inside the update function, so it will be checked in every frame. Now, we will use the same condition for jump. Here, we can see some conditions are already there. So, we will write the and sign 2 times like this, and then add the condition, so it will check if the game is over before making a jump. Now, we will use this condition for the obstacle spawning system. I am going to open the obstacle spawner script and then we will add the condition inside the update function. So, we have to first access the isGameOver variable from the player controller script. So, how we can do that? First we have to find the game object which the player controller script is attached. We know the player controller script is attached to the player game object. So, I am going to find the player game object by the tag name. And then we have to get a component called player controller which is the script we need. So, now we will be able to get the variable. Then we will stop the spawn obstacles enumerator function, so the obstacles will stop spawning. We just have to write stop coroutine and the function name inside double quotes. So, ultimately this condition means, if the isGameOver variable is true, I mean if the game is over, then the obstacle will stop spawning. Save the script by Ctrl S and open the player controller script. Remember we have not called the GameOver function yet. So, we will call it now. In this game, the game over will happen in 2 cases. First, if the player collides with an obstacle. Second, if the player falls down from the ground. In case of falling down, if the player falls onto the bottom destroyer game object, then we will make the game over. So, we will have to detect collision in both cases. We would be able to detect collision with obstacles very easily. Because, obstacles are under the obstacle tag. But, the bottom destroyer has no tag. So, we will add a tag called bottom detector. Now, we will set the tag for the bottom destroyer game object. So, first we will detect the collision between player and obstacles. We can do this inside the player controller script. So I am going to detect the collision inside the onCollision enter 2D function. We already know how to detect a collision. So, if the player collides with an object that is under the obstacle tag, then we want the game over function to be called. Now, we will detect the collision with bottom destroyer. So, in the same way we will do the collision detection, just change the tag name to bottom detector. So, now we will save the script by pressing Ctrl S. Then we can go back to the Unity. Now, press the play button to check if everything is fine. Okay, we can see the game is not working fine. The error is down below as you can see. If we click here, we can see a new window called Console. We will place it in the Scene View window. This window usually shows error and warning. However, the error is obstacles. If I open the Visual Studio, we can see obstacles. I am going to cut the S from the end, as our tag name is only obstacle. So, now we can save the script and go back to Unity. Now, we can see errors have gone as I made changes to the script. Now, we will open the animator window as I forgot to do something. We will click the transition that we've just created a few moments ago. Now, we will add a condition. The condition automatically took the jump parameter. But, we will change that to death. Then we will also disable the has exit time, as we want the animation to be played immediately without taking extra time. So, now we can hit play. First, we will try to fall down from the ground. Okay, the game is over as we can see. Now, we will restart the game. This time we will collide with an obstacle. Okay, this also works. So, this is it for this video, and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys! In the last video, we have created the game over system. Now, the game gets over once the player collides with an obstacles or falls down from the ground. But, still I think the game is not interesting. So, we will do something more to make the game interesting. So, what can be done to make the game more exciting? The best thing we can do is to increase the player run speed after every 10 seconds. The game will start slowly, but the player will increase the running speed every 10 seconds later, and obstacles will spawn more frequently. This is what we will be doing in this video. So, the first thing we will do is to open the player controller script. Now, we will create an enumerator function, because we have to use timer later on. So we can name this function increase game speed. Since we want the game to increase the player running speed after every 10 seconds, so we will use a loop here. The while loop is not going to have any condition, so we can write true, as we cannot leave it empty. Now, we will increase the running speed of the player. Currently the run speed is 4. So, if we increase the running speed by 0.2 after every 10 seconds, that will be perfect. But we will put a condition for increasing the run speed. Because, if we keep increasing the running speed, then within a couple of minutes the speed will become 10 and then beyond. Then the game will be impossible to play. So, we don't want to make the game impossible to play. This is why we will limit the running speed when the speed reaches 8. The condition will be if the run speed is less than 8. Then we will add 0.2 with the current speed. So, the game will never be impossible to play. But, this line shows error. If we hover over this line, we can see the error. The error is, run speed variable is an integer type variable. But, here we have added 0.2, which is a float number, because the number contains decimal. So, in order to remove the error, we will make the run speed variable from integer to float. Okay, the error has gone and this is now perfect. However, now as the player will keep increasing the running speed after every 10 seconds, so the obstacle spawning interval should keep decreasing after every 10 seconds. So, now we want the obstacle spawning interval to decrease after every 10 seconds. So, we first have to access the obstacle spawn interval variable. That variable is inside the obstacle spawner script. So, I am going to open that script. Inside this script, we can see the obstacle spawn interval variable is currently private. But, in order to access this variable, we must make it public. So I am going to make it public. So, as we made it public, this variable will now show in the inspector window. We can save the script and check it now. As you can see, now the variable shows here. But we actually want this variable to not show in the inspector. So, we can add an attribute called hide in inspector behind the variable like the way I am doing. This will make the variable hide in the inspector. You can check it now. In the same way, if you want a private variable to show inside the inspector, you have to write another attribute called serialize field. However, we will save the script and open the player controller script. Here we will now decrease the obstacle spawning interval. This time will decrease 0.1 second after every 10 seconds. So, first we have to access the obstacle spawner script. The obstacle spawner script is currently attached to the ground spawner game object. So, we will find the ground spawner game object. We already know how to find a game object by using its tag. Since this game object has no tag, so this time we will find that game object directly by using its name. And surprisingly this is even easier. We just have to type gameObject.find, then the name of the game object inside. Now, we will get a component which is our obstacle spawner script. So, now we will get the obstacle spawn interval variable. Then we will write -n equals 0.1f. So, now this interval will decrease by 0.1 second after every 10 seconds. But, we should limit the decrease, since the decrement can make the interval 0 within a short time. So, we will make a condition like if the interval reaches to 1 second, then the decrement will stop, otherwise the game will be impossible to play. So, I am going to access the variable in the same way, and then make the condition. Then we will cut this line and paste it inside. Now, we can see everything is fine except one thing. That thing is we forgot to create a timer of 10 seconds. I already said, the game will speed up after every 10 seconds. So, inside the loop, we will create the timer above everything. Because, first the game will play for 10 seconds in default speed, then it will speed up. We already know how to create a timer. Okay, we've created the complete function, now we have to call the function. So, we will call the iEnumerator function inside the start function, so the function will start working when the game starts. We already know this function should be called using start coroutine. We can copy the function name. Now, we will stop the function when the game is over. So, we can copy the start coroutine line and then we just have to write stop coroutine instead. Now, save the script and open the Unity editor. Now select the player game object, play the game and then notice the run speed, see if it's increasing or not. Okay. It's working and I think everything is fine, nothing is wrong there. So I will see you in the next video. Hey guys. In this video, we will add score to the game. Currently the game has no score, so we will do it now. When the player will pass over an obstacle, the player will get 1 score. So, let's get started. First, we are going to need a text component. Text is an UI component. UI means user interface, by the way. Every games have main menu, which is the biggest example of UI. We use text and button stuff to make user interface. However, Unity has an awesome UI system, which you will understand shortly. In this video, we will only show the score using UI. So, I am going to start by creating a text object from the UI option, then we can call it score text. We can show some text inside the game using this thing. We can see the text was created under the canvas object. Because, we must need a canvas to create an UI item. Don't worry, canvas is not a hard thing to understand. Canvas is just a thing that contains UI elements. Now, if we select the canvas, then put the cursor on the scene view, and press the F key from our keyboard. We can see, Unity automatically took the focus to the canvas. In this way, we can easily took the focus to a game object without dragging the scene view manually. In the scene view, we can see the text is placed at the bottom left corner by default. We will use this text to show the score. Now, we will make a change to the canvas. We know, there are different size screens in real mobile devices. So, we have to make the game fit for all screen size. In this case, we want the UI items will be big or small automatically according to the screen size. But, currently if I make the game view window smaller, we can see the text is not getting smaller. So, if we want to make the UI item scale automatically, we have to click on the UI scale mode option, then select the scale with screen size. Now, we will change the reference resolution to 1600 for the X, then for the Y value we can set 720. Because, this is the standard screen size for a mobile horizontally. Now, we will drag the match slider and make it 0.5. Now, there will be nothing wrong if the actual device screen is even bigger or smaller than the reference resolution, the UI items will be scaled automatically. So, I am going to place the text at the top left corner, where the score should be placed. Now, we can change the text to score. We will set the value 0, by default. We will increase the font size like this. Now, we will change the font of the score text. So, we will create a folder called fonts as we have to import a font file. So, I am going to right-click, and select Import New Asset. We are importing a TTF font file called prompt. So, after importing the font, we will drag and drop the font to the font option as you can see. The font has been applied, but we cannot see the text there, because the new font has made the text even bigger than the text box. So, we have to decrease the font size, so we can see the font has been changed. You can of course use any font that you want. Then make sure this box is big enough. Because, if the text gets bigger than the text box, then it will not show anything. So, make sure the box is big and wide. Currently, the game view is set to free aspect. But, we want to view our game in a real device screen size. So I am going to press on this drop down, then select the plus icon. Now, we have to give it a name for the resolution size. We can name it 20:9 landscape, as this is a horizontal game. Now, here in the drop down, we have to select the fixed resolution, or you can select the aspect ratio instead if you want. But, I prefer fixed resolution. I am going to put the X value 1600, for Y I am going to set 720. Then, hit OK. Now, if we make the game view window bigger or smaller, we can see text size is getting bigger or smaller according to the screen size. Now, we will create an empty game object called score detector. We will reset the transform first. This game object will detect obstacles. When the player will jump over an obstacle, this object will go through that obstacle. Then we will detect the collision and increase the score. So we will add a box collider to this game object. Now, we will edit the collider shape. We should make it longer like this. Now, I will place the game object behind the player. Because, first the player has to overpass an obstacle, after that the score detector will detect the obstacle and we will increase the score. Now, we have to enable the is trigger option, so the object will be able to go through the obstacle silently. Now, we will get into the coding part to make the score functional. So, we will create a script called score system. First, we will need the onTriggerEnter2D function. Here, we will detect the collision with obstacle. We already know how to detect a collision as we have done it multiple times. So, when the collision will happen, then we want one score to be added to the current score. So, first I will create a public integer type variable called score. The default value is 0. Now, we will need another variable because we have to access the score text. Since the text is an UI component. So, we first have to import the UI to use the text in a script. At the top side, we will type using unityengine.ui. So, now we will be able to create a text type variable. We are going to name it score text. Now, inside the collision detection, we will first update the score value to add one number to the score variable. Now, we will set the score to the score text. So, we have to write score text.text and then after an equal sign we will write the text that we want to show now. Here we want to show score and a colon before the score number. So, we will write the score and colon with spaces. The text you put inside the double quote will be shown exactly as the output. Then we will add a plus sign and write the score variable name. This is how we print a variable value with a string value together. String means the text which is inside the double quote. So, I am going to save the script, and then go back to the Unity editor. Now, we will attach the script to the score detector game object. Here, in the score text variable, we will attach the score. Now, as we want this game object to run along with player. So, we will also attach the follow player script. So, now play the game. Wow, it's working correctly. So, I will see you in the next video. Hey guys. In the last video, we have added the score system, and in this video, we will learn how to save the high score. So, let's get started. First, we have to know how to save a score in device local storage. When we play a game, we make some progress. That progress must be saved in the local storage or online server if we want to use that progress in future. Because when we close the game and open it next time, the game will not recover the previous progress automatically. If we save the previous progress data in the local storage, then we can retrieve that progress data from the device's local storage. If we save the data in the online server, then we can retrieve the data from any device where the game is installed, doesn't matter if the device is a mobile or a computer. Online database servers are usually used in multiplayer online games. Since this game is going to be a single-player offline game, so we only need the device's local storage to save the data. In this case, we will be using the score system script to save the high score. So, I am going to open it. So, what should we do first? When the game is over, we will get the saved high score and then compare with the current score. If we find the score is greater than the saved high score, then we will save this score as the high score. But, what if user opens the game for the first time when no high score is saved in the storage? Don't worry. We don't need to check if there is a data called high score is already saved in the local storage. Because, if there is no high score data saved in the local storage, we will get 0 as the high score value automatically. So, first we have to detect if the game is over inside the update function. This is going to be an if condition. So, in order to detect the game over, we have to find the player game object. Then get the player controller script. Now, we can get the isGameOver variable. Now, if the isGameOver variable is true, it means the game is over, and this is the time to save the high score. Unity has a data saving system called PlayerPrefs which we will be using to save the high score. Now, we will get the high score from the local storage using PlayerPrefs. Remember, we don't have to make sure whether there is a high score available in the local storage, because we will get 0 if there is nothing saved in the PlayerPrefs database. So, inside an if condition, we will write playerprefs.getInt. Now we have to pass a parameter which is the key of the data. because, a data is stored under a specific key, so we can retrieve the data by calling the key name. We can write high score. Using this line we are fetching an integer type data. Now, we will write less than symbol and then the score variable. It means, we get the value of the high score data, and then checked whether the value is less than the current score. If the current score is greater, then we will write player prefs.setInt. Here we have to pass two parameters. First one is the key, and second one is the value that we want to save. The name is high score, and the value is the score variable. Now, we want to show the high score in the console, so that we can see the result using the console window. To do that, we have to type debug.log and then we can write a message that we want to show. As we want to show the high score, so we can write this. You can show any message here. However, now save the script and open then Unity Game Engine. Now, we will play the game to check if it's working. So, we can see the game is over and the message has shown. We made a new high score. This message will not show if we made less than the high score. Now, I am going to replay the game and this time I will try to make more score. Okay, so we can see we have made a new high score again. So, this is it for this video, and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys! In this video, we will create the game over screen. Generally every game has a game over screen, but we still don't have a game over screen for this game. So, we will create that now. We will need some images to create the game over screen. So let's start off by creating a folder called UI Images, because we will import some UI images. In the first video, we've imported the UI images as well. But, that's not a good way to organize a project assets. So I have deleted those UI images already. You don't need to delete them, you can follow this video without organizing the UI images. But, as I have already deleted the UI images, so I am going to import the UI pictures inside the UI folder. Now, we will create a panel called Game Over Panel. This Game Over panel will appear when the game is over. We can see the Game Over panel has automatically been created inside the existing canvas. Because only one canvas is enough for a scene most of the time. Now, we will create some text and buttons to organize the Game Over panel inside the Game Over panel game object. First, we will set a picture as the background of the Game Over panel. So, we will drag and drop the canvas image onto the source image option. We can make the Game Over panel smaller. So, we have to change the scale to 0.8 for the X, and 0.9 for the Y. We can see the image is not clearly visible. In order to fix that, we will click the color option and then we can see an option called A. A means alpha. Alpha is the opacity of the game object which makes the object visible or invisible. So, if we increase the value of the A option, we can see the object is fully visible now. So, now we can change the color. I think, this color looks good. Now, we will add a text called Game Over Text. We will first change the text to Game Over. Now, we will change the alignment to middle for horizontal and also for the vertical. So, the text will show at the middle of the text box. Now, we will make the text box bigger like this. Then we've to change the font size to 144, and the font style should be bold. I think, we should change the font. So first I am going to import some fonts. Now, we will place the revamped font for the Game Over text. We cannot see the Game Over text in the scene view, probably we have to make the text box bigger. Okay, now we can see the text. At last we will change the color. Now, we can see the Game Over text looks fine. Now, we will add a text underneath the Game Over text which will show the final score. So, I am going to create the text and call it score text. I am going to write a score, let's say 25. Now, we have to place the text right in place and also make the text box bigger. Then we will change the font style, font size, alignment, and the color as well. We will make the color green. Now, for the font we will set Momcake bold. Now, it looks pretty good. So, we can go ahead and duplicate this text, and rename it to high score text. We will show the high score through this text. We can place it under the score text. We don't need much change for the high score text. Here we can just change the text to high score. The font size should be a little smaller than the score text. And then I will change the color as well. Okay, now we will create a button called replay button. This button has a text object which shows the text of the button. First we will add a green image to the button. We can make the button bigger and place it at the bottom right side as you can see. We can see the picture doesn't fit with the button. Because the button image is a square size picture and actual button is located at the middle of the picture. As the top and bottom side of the image is empty, so we have to crop the picture to get the actual button. To do that, I am going to click on the picture from the project window. Inside the inspector, we can see an option called Sprite Mode. We will select multiple for this option, then we will hit Apply. Now, open up the sprite editor. Here we can see the full button image. Unity has an option called Slice which we can use to automatically detect the button object from the whole image. So we will click Slice button and select Slice again. Now, click Apply from here. Then we can close the sprite editor window. Now, we have to attach the picture to the button again. So as you can see, now the image fits perfectly. We will then edit the button size. We will first change the text and font size. Then we will change the font to Bomber Escort. Now, we will change the text color to dark green. Now, we need another button for the main menu. Because when the game is over, there should be a button for the user to go to the main menu. I am going to place two buttons alongside with some space, as you can see. We have to change the button text to main menu. Now, we will change the background picture of the button. We can see the yellow button image is also same as the green button image. So we have to fix this like the previous one. Now, we will change the button text color to dark yellow like this. So, this is our Game Over panel. You can of course add more items to the Game Over panel. Now, I want this Game Over panel to be appeared after 2 seconds when the game is over. Also the Game Over panel will appear with a fade animation. So, we need to set up the fade animation first. Then we will make the Game Over panel show when the game is over. So, in order to add fade animation, we have to add a component called Canvas Group. I am going to select the Game Over panel. Now, we will add the Canvas Group component. We need this component just for the alpha option. So, now we will make the fade animation. I am going to open the animation window. Make sure the Game Over panel is selected. Now, we will create an animation. We should definitely create it inside the anim folder. We can name it Game Over Anim. So, now we will add keyframes for the animation. First we have to click on the record button. Now, we will make the alpha value 0. We can see a keyframe has been generated automatically, as we made a change to the object. Then we will click on the 30 number frame, and make the alpha value 1. This will make the game over panel fully visible within half second. The alpha will increase from 0 to 1 gradually within half second. However, now we have to click the record button to stop the recording. Now we will open the anim folder and click on the game over anim to uncheck the loop time, as we don't need the loop for this animation. So, our animation is completed. We can play the animation to check if it is working correctly. We can see it is looping. But that's not our problem. Unity shows us the animation again and again by making it loop. If we play the game, we will see everything is fine. You can edit the animation at any time if you want. But how could you access the animation? Just click the Game Over panel, then the animation will be opened automatically in the animation window. In the past, we have created some animation for the player which you can access just by selecting the player game object from the hierarchy. However, now we will get into the coding part. Because we have to make the animation show when the game is over. By default the Game Over panel should be disabled. If we just uncheck this box, it means the game object is disabled. So, we will enable it when the game is over. We will open the player controller script. Here we are going to need a variable for the Game Over panel. We will get access to our Game Over panel through this variable. So now, inside the Game Over function, we will first create a timer, as we want the Game Over panel to be visible after 2 seconds when the game is over. We can use enumerator function to make a timer. So, I am going to create one called Show Game Over panel. Now, what we need to do is to create a timer of 2 seconds. After the timer, we will make the Game Over panel active. So, we have to write GameOverPanel.setActive, true. This will show the Game Over panel. We want something more to happen along with enabling the Game Over panel. When the Game Over panel will show, we want the score text to be disappeared immediately. And the Game Over panel has a text to show the final score and another text to show the high score. Also there are 2 buttons. We have to make all of them functional. I am going to create some variables. First one is game object type variable, we can call score text. This text is an UI object, but we are accessing this as a game object, so that we can activate or deactivate it easily. So, now we will deactivate the score text. Now, we will create text type variables called final score text and high score text for our Game Over panel. First we have to import the UI. So I am going to write using unityengine.ui. Now, we can create the variables. So, inside the Show Game Over panel function, we will set the final score to the final score text. First, we have to access the score variable from the score system script. I am going to open the Unity to see which game object contains the score system script. We can see the score system game object is currently attached to the score detector game object. So, I am going to find the score detector game object. Then get the score system script. Now, we can get the score variable. Before this line, we can write final score text as we want to show the score through the text. Now, before the score we can add score and colon. And make sure to complete the line with a semicolon. In the same way, we will set the high score to the high score text. We have to get the high score from the player prefs. So, I am going to get the high score. Remember, the key was high score, as you can see. We still have two buttons inside the Game Over panel that are not functional yet. We will make them functional in the next video probably. However, we have to call the IEnumerator function from the Game Over function. This function should be called using coroutine. At last, save the script, and go back to the Unity. Here we have to select the player and attach some game objects to these variables. I am going to drag and drop the Game Over panel, then the main score text, and then the score text and the high score text from the Game Over panel. Now, we can play the game to see if it's working. Yes, it's just perfect. The fade animation also works correctly, so this is it for this video and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys! In the last video, we have created the Game Over panel which is working perfectly. Although we still have two buttons inside the Game Over panel that are not functional yet, we will do that later. In this video our main goal is to make a main menu for this game. Currently the game has only one scene which is the game scene. If we play the game, there is no menu, the game starts to play immediately. So, I am going to open the scenes folder. There is currently one scene called the sample scene. So, I will create a new scene called main menu scene. Now we will open this scene. We can see there is currently no game object except the main camera. So, what is scene in Unity? Scene is a file which has some game objects inside. Such as, if we open the sample scene, we can see there is some game objects that we have created in the previous videos. We create game objects to organize a scene for the game. Every scene contains different part of a game. In this game, we have the sample scene which has the actual game, and we have just created the main menu scene which will have the main menu. So, I am going to open the main menu scene again. Because, we will now make the main menu for the game. In the scene view, we first have to find the camera. So I am going to select the main camera from the hierarchy, and take the cursor onto the scene view. Now press the F key, this takes the focus to the main camera. So now we can place an image as the background. Currently I don't have a special image for the main menu, so I will place the game background image here. So, I am going to drag and drop it onto the hierarchy. Now, we will create a button called play button. We can see a canvas is automatically created with the button, as there was no canvas. However, I am going to put the cursor on the scene view while the button is selected. Now press the F key, so we can see the focus has been taken to the button. Now, we will click on the canvas as we have to set it up for different screen size. So I am going to change this option to scale with screen size. Now we have to give a reference resolution which is 1600 for X, and 720 for Y, we already know these things. The match should be 0.5. This is the match between width and height. This makes the UI objects placed accordingly for any aspect ratio. Now, I am going to place the button at the middle and also edit the button size. We will set the green image as the background of the button. Now, we can change the button text, font style, font size, and the text color as well. The text would be play. Font would be Momcake Bold. Font style would be bold. Font size would be 72. Now we can change the font color. Now, we will duplicate the button and call it exit button. We will place it underneath the play button. We have to change the button background image. I will use the blue button image for this button. We can see the blue button image does not fit. So we have to fix it. We already know how to get the actual button object from the whole image. Okay, now we will change the button text to exit. The buttons look okay now. So we are going to go ahead and add a text which will show the high score. I am going to call it high score text. Now, we will place it at the correct position. I am going to increase the font size, so we can see the text. We should also change the text style to bold, and the alignment as well. Now, we will change the font. Then we can change the text to a sample high score, let's say 25. At last we will change the text color. So, this is our very simple main menu. You can definitely make it better by adding more components. Now, we will get into the coding part to make the button and text functional. I will create a new script called main menu script. Open it in Visual Studio. First we will import the UI, as we have to work with UI objects. Now, we will create a text type variable called highScoreText. We don't need any variable to make the buttons functional. However, we will set the high score to the high score text in the start function. So, I am going to write highscoreText.text. Now we will set the high score. First we will write a text like this. Then we have to get the high score number from the player prefs. We've already done these multiple times. This high score number is an integer type value. If we want to show an integer type value through a text, then it will show error. Because, a text can only show a string type value. In order to avoid the error we convert the integer to string by writing to string. But, here we don't have any error, so we don't need to convert the integer to string. The reason for not getting any error is we don't only show the integer type value, we also added a string type text which makes the whole thing a string. So, now the integer will work as a string. This is why, it doesn't matter whether you convert the integer to string or not. I am going to cut the to string, as the code will also work without this. However, now we will make the buttons functional. First we will make the play button functional. We want when the play button is clicked, the game scene will be loaded immediately. So, first of all we have to create a function called loadGameScene. Inside the function we will load the game scene, and later on we will link this function to our button. So, how we can load another scene? In order to load a different scene we're going to need something called scene management which we have to import first. So, I am going to import it by writing using Unity engine.sceneManagement. Now, we can load new scene using the scene management. We've to write sceneManager.loadScene. Now we have to write the address of the scene that we want to load. First we will write assets, because all the images, scripts, scenes everything is inside the assets folder. So now, as our scene is inside the scenes folder, so we have to write scenes. Now we will call the scene name. The scene name is sample scene, but we have to write the scene name with the extension. If we reveal this file inside the Windows File Explorer, now I am going to select View and click on this File Name Extensions checkbox, we can see the file extension has been revealed. The extension is Unity. I am going to copy the file name with extension. Now, we can paste it here. Now, I am going to save the script and open the Unity. We have to attach the script with a game object, otherwise the script will do nothing. So, I am going to create a new game object, and call it script container. We can reset the transform component, although we don't even need this game object to be placed at a specific position. Anyway, we will attach the script to this game object. We can see, it requires the high score text, so I am going to attach the high score text. Now, we will select the play button. Inside the inspector we can see an option called onClick. We will use this option to make the button functional. Here I am going to press this plus icon. Now, we have to attach a game object that has a script. So, I am going to attach the script container game object, because this game object has the loadGameScene function which we will use for the button. We want the loadGameScene function will be executed once the button is clicked. So, we will click this drop down and select the loadGameScene function. Now, the play button is functional, but we still have one more button which is not functional yet. So, we have to create another function for the exit button, we can call it exit game. In this case, we want the game to quit when the exit button is pressed. This is very simple. We just have to write application.quit. This will exit the game, and it works for all platforms like Windows, Android, or iOS. Now, I am going to save the script and get back to the Unity editor. Now, select the exit button, make an on-click option, attach the script container game object, and then select the exit game function from the drop-down. Inside the Unity editor, the exit button will not work, but it will work in the released version. However, the other button will work. So, we can play the game. First thing we can notice is the high score has been loaded. Now, if we press the exit button, it doesn't work, but if we press the play button, yes, the game starts playing. Now, we can close the game and make sure to save the scene by pressing Ctrl S. In Unity, every scene is completely different, there is no connection between two scenes. We can see the currently opened scene over here at the top position. As you can see, we currently have opened the main menu scene. So, it means every time we open a project with Unity, it actually opens a scene from that project. All the game objects that we can see inside the hierarchy window are the property of a scene. I mean, a scene only have some game objects. We create game objects just to organize a scene. Main camera and UI components are also game objects. When we press Ctrl S, all the game objects specifications get saved for the open scene. However, remember, inside the sample scene we still have two buttons inside the Game Over panel that are not functional yet. But, I will do that in the next video, as I don't want to make the video longer. So, this is it for this video and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys! In this video, we will add a background music to this game. First thing we have to do is to import a background music. So, we will create a folder. We can name it audio or music or whatever you want. We will now import a music file inside this folder. I have chosen a background music for this game. The music name is Twirly Tops. This music was composed by the Green Orbs. I have downloaded this music from YouTube audio library. So, how we can add a background music? We already know, nothing will work if that is not attached to a game object. So, we first have to attach the music with a game object. So I am going to create a game object called audio. Now, we will add a component called audio source. Then, we will drag and drop the audio file onto the audio clip option. That's it. Now, it should work. We could have done that in an easier way. I am going to remove the audio source component. Now, we will just drag and drop the audio file onto the hierarchy window. Yes, the component has been added automatically. We can see some options here. The play on awake is already enabled. We will also enable the loop option, so the background music will keep playing again and again. Remember, this is the main menu scene, I mean, we have added the background music in this scene, because the scene will be the first scene for the game. So, when the game will be opened, the background music will start playing. But, there is a problem. I am going to play the game to make you understand that. We can hear the background music, but if we press the play button, the sample scene is opened. Now, the problem is the background music is not playing anymore. This is because, when a new scene starts, the old scene gets destroyed. So, all the game object gets destroyed as well. Now, we have to do something to make the audio game object not to destroy when a new scene is opened. Because, if the audio game object doesn't destroy, the background music will not stop playing. When the sample scene will start, the audio will be a game object for that scene. So, in order to make a game object not to destroy, we have to add some code with the game object. So, I am going to create a script called audio script. We will double-click to open it in Visual Studio. Now, we will write just one line code. Don't destroy on load. Here we have to pass the game object that we want to keep alive, as we will attach the script to the audio game object. So, we can easily get the audio game object. We just have to write this. This means the game object to which the script is attached. Now, save the script, and get back. Now, we will attach the script with our audio game object. Now, play the game. Yes, it is working. Now, I am going to make the game over. Now, we can see there is two buttons, they are not functional yet, so we will make them functional now. So I am going to close the game, and open the sample scene. We can see, it asks for whether we want to save the current scene progress, as we are about to leave this scene. Definitely we should hit save. Now, we will create a script called Game Over Panel Script. We need this script, because all we need is to create two functions to make those buttons functional. So, I am going to open the script. The first function name would be something like load main menu. Make sure the function is public. So, in order to load the main menu scene, we first have to import the scene management. So, I am going to import it. Now, we will load the main menu scene using the scene manager. Here we have to pass the address of the scene. The address would be assets/scene/main-menu-scene.unity. Now, we still have another button which is the replay button. In this case, we want, when the button is clicked the game will start playing again. So, the easiest way to do is to reload the scene, I mean we will just load the sample scene when the replay button is clicked, so the game will start replaying. We can copy the load main menu function and paste it below. Now, we will change the name to load sample scene. Then we will just edit the scene address. This is it. We can save the script and go back to Unity. First we have to attach the new script to a game object. We can attach the game object to the Game Over panel, although the Game Over panel is not active as you can see. But, it's not a problem, because it will be activated when the game is over. And we don't need our button to be functional before the game is over, as the buttons are inside the Game Over panel. So, I am going to attach the script to the Game Over panel game object. Now, we will select the replay button. In the inspector window, we have to make an on-click event. You can definitely create multiple on-click event for one button. However, now we will attach the game over panel. And then, we will select the load sample function. We got this function because of the game over panel, which has the game over panel script attached. For the main menu button, we will do the same. Make an on-click event, then attach the game over panel. The last thing is to select the load main menu scene function. Now, save the Unity scene, then we can play the game. We can see there is an error. The error is, main menu scene cannot be loaded. A scene must be registered in the build settings in order to be loaded. So, we now have to register it in the build settings. I am going to open the build setting. We can see the sample scene is already registered, since it is the default scene by Unity. However, I am going to drag and drop the main menu scene right here. All the scenes we create for a game should be registered here, otherwise it will not work. However, now we can check if it is working. Yes, now the scene loads. We can see everything is working correctly. So, this is it for this video, and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys! We have added the background music in the last video. But, there is a problem. I am going to open the main menu scene. Now, I am going to play the game. We will hit play button. We can hear the background music. I am going to make the game over. Now, inside the game over panel, I will select the main menu button. We can see the main menu scene opened, and a new background music has started playing. As a result, currently 2 background music is playing at a time. We have to fix this. We want, if the user comes to the main menu after making a game over, then the old music will keep playing, and the new audio game object will destroy. So, how we can do that? First of all, we will create a tag called BG Music. Now we will attach the audio game object to this tag. Then we will open the audio script that we have created in the previous video. This script currently has only one line. Because of this line, the audio game object doesn't destroy when a new scene loads. However, we will not remove this line. We will use another function called awake. This is a default function by Unity. When a scene loads, the awake function gets called before the start function. However, inside the awake function, we will find all the game objects that are under the BG Music tag. Currently, we know, there is only one game object under the BG Music tag. But, in the game, when the player will back to the main menu scene after having a game over, a new audio game object will be created. So, then the game will have 2 game objects under the BG Music tag. Now, what we have to do is we have to get all game objects that are under the BG Music tag and store them into a thing. But, what can store multiple game objects? In this case, we will need something called array. Array is a thing that can store multiple stuff. Such as, a string type array can store multiple string value, a integer type array can store multiple integer value. In the same way, a game object type array can store multiple game object value. Array is the big brother of variable. Variable can hold only one object, but array can hold multiple objects. In this case, we will need game object type array. So I am going to create a game object type array called music object. This square bracket means, this is an array. If you remove the square bracket, it will be a variable. However, now we will get into the awake function. We will find all the game objects that are under the bgMusic tag and put them into the music object array. So, I am going to write music object equals to. Now, in order to find multiple game objects, we have to write gameObject.findGameObjects with tag. Now, we will write the tag name which is bgMusic. This will return all the game objects that are available under the bgMusic tag. We already know that, when the user will get back to the main menu scene after having a game over, there will be two game objects under the bgMusic tag. The first game object will be the old audio, that didn't destroy when the main menu scene loaded. And the second game object is the new audio game object, that gets generated every time when the scene loads. So, if we delete the second game object from the array, then everything should be fine, I mean, only the old background music should play. So, let's do that. First we have to check if there is at least two game objects exist inside the array. So, I am going to make an if condition to check if there is two game objects inside the array. So, if the array length is greater than or equals to 2, then we will destroy the second game object from the array. So, I am going to write destroy, and then the array name with square bracket. Now, we have to provide the index inside the brackets. Keep in mind, array index starts from 0. If we write 0, then the first game object will be destroyed. If we write 1 as the index, then the second game object will be destroyed. As we want the second audio game object to destroy, so we will write 1. Now, I am going to save the script, and get back to the Unity. Now, we can play the game. Yes, the old background music is only playing. Because, the new audio game object has been destroyed when the scene loaded. So it works as expected. Now, we will do another thing. We are going to open the sample scene which is our game scene. This game will be built for Android. But, still there is no way to play the game in an Android device. Currently, we play the game with our keyboard on the PC. The player jumps only when we press the space key. For Android, it should be like when we touch the screen, the player jumps. So, in order to do that we will create a big transparent button all over the screen. I am going to create the button called jump button. Now, we will resize the button like this. We will delete the text object from the button, as we don't need any text for this button. Now, we will make the button transparent. I am going to open the normal color option. Now, at the bottom, we can see we will make the A option to 0. Then, we will do the same thing for other colors as well, as you can see. Now, we will open the player controller script, as we have to set up the click event. We have to make the player jump when the button gets pressed. So, I am going to create a new function called jump button. Now, we will copy the jump code along with the if condition and paste it inside the jump button function. Now, we will delete the space key input. So, now the condition is, if the is game over is false, and the can jump is true, then the player will jump. So, now we will save the script and get back to the Unity editor. Now, select the jump button. Make an on-click event in the inspector. We have to attach a game object here. We will attach the player game object as this game object has the player controller script. Now, we will select the jump button function from the player controller script, as you can see. Now, I am going to play the game. If we click on the screen, the player jumps. So, now the game should be playable on Android. But, there is still one problem. First, I am going to make the game over. Now, if we click on a button from the Game Over panel, we can see the button is not working. This is because, the transparent button is over the Game Over panel. So when we click, the transparent button is getting clicked. So, what we can do is, inside the hierarchy window, we will take the Game Over panel down to the jump button. This will fix the problem, because the Game Over panel is disabled and it only gets enabled when the game is over. So, now we can play the game again. Yes, everything works as expected. So, this is it for this video and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys! We have completed making the game. Now, we will do the most important thing, which is we will build the game for Android. So, let's get started. First we have to configure some settings. So I am going to open the build settings. Here we will select Android as we want to build the game for Android platform. If you don't have the Android build support, then open up the Unity Hub. Then install the SDK, NDK, and also the JDK tools. These are needed to build an app for Android. However, we have to switch the platform to Android. This will take some time to complete the operation. By default, a project is optimized for PC operating system. So, now the project gets optimized for Android platform. Now, we will open the player settings. Here we can see company name option where we have to enter a company name. If you don't have a company, you can use your own name. I will write Slug, which is my YouTube channel name. In the product name option, you have to enter the game name. This name will be the app name. We can name this game Goofy Run, as you can see. We can change the version. We can make it 1.1. Or you can use 3 characters like 1.0.1. If we update this game, then we have to change the version before building the app. Now, we will set up an icon for this game. We can see an option called default icon. This is where we will put the app icon. So, I am going to import the app icon first. But, I don't have any icon for the game. So I will create an icon. I will use Affinity Designer to make the icon. Affinity Designer is a paid application alternative to Adobe Illustrator. I use this application, because I think the user interface is much easier than Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. So, let's start making the game icon. So, this is our very simple game icon. I am going to export it. Now, we will import the icon in Unity. Either we can select the app icon, or we can drag and drop the image onto this option. Now, we will expand the resolution and presentation. Here we can see an option called Orientation. We will uncheck the Portrait and Portrait Upside Down option. So the game will start in landscape mode. Now, we will expand the other settings option. We will check this Auto Graphics API, so the game graphics will automatically be adjusted for any device. It will take some time to complete. Now, we will scroll down. We can see an option called Override Package Name. If you want to change the package name, then you can check this box. Package name is the unique ID for an app. This name was generated automatically by using our company name and app name. However, I will not change the package name. Now, we will get to the publishing settings. We can see an option called Key Store Manager. If you want to release the app in Google Play Store or an App Store, you must sign the app with a key store. So, I am going to show how to sign an app for Google Play Store. The process is very simple. We have to click on the Key Store Manager. Now, we will create a new key store. So, we will click this drop down and select Create New in Dedicated Location. We have to choose a folder where we want to create the key store. Now, we have to provide some information to create the key store. First thing, we have to set a password for the key store. Then confirm the password. Now, we have to set an alias. Then we will give a password for our key. This can be similar to the key store password. You can increase the validity of the key store. I think 50 years is enough. Then you can provide more information if you want. But, I am pressing add key without giving those info. We can see, it asks if we want to use this key store to sign this project. I am going to hit yes. We can see it has automatically taken the alias and passwords. By the way, you can sign any game with the same key store, you just need to remember the password. However, now we can close the project settings window. The project is now ready to build. Before building the game, make sure you have attached all the scenes in the build settings. The first scene of the build settings will be loaded when the game is opened. Here we can see the sample scene is the first scene. But, we want the main menu scene to be loaded when the game is opened. So, I am going to drag the sample scene and put it underneath the main menu scene. Now, everything looks fine. So, we can click on the build button. We have to choose a location where we want the game to be built. I will create a new folder called Release. Now, choose this folder and give a name of the APK file. Now click Save. It has started building the app, which will take a few minutes. In the meantime, if it fails to build or shows any error, we will see that in the console window. We can see the app has been built. We can see the APK file. Now we can install the app in our Android device. I am going to show the gameplay after installing the app in my Android device. Anyway, this is it for this video, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. So, this is the end of the course. At last, my suggestion is, don't stop learning and practicing. Thanks for watching. Stay with me.